Jeff, and I'm not sure I know how to answer it. I don't think of myself as a philosopher. All I want to say is that when civilians are deliberately used as cover, it has to affect the proportionality calculations. In that case, I don't know how it compares to other cases. Imagine this is supposed to have happened in the Franco-Prussian War, according to the French, that civilian hostages were literally strapped to armored vehicles which rode into battle. And the French killed the hostages, fired at the armored vehicles and killed the hostages. Now, responsibility surely for those deaths doesn't lie with the French who did the killing. And I'm not sure how to, this I said in the talk, I wasn't sure how to calculate the proportionality issue. Here were 5 hostages strapped to a building, to a moving vehicle that was firing. Is destroying the vehicle proportionate or disproportionate to killing the 5? I don't know. But I think it's not the same proportionality argument as you would make with a group of civilians who weren't being used. Yes?
Yeah, so this is on the same set of issues, and I think this might help to resolve some of the issues that Jeff has with you. So you said that in cases where the insurgents have deliberately placed civilians in order to use them as shields or for whatever other reasons, that they should have responsibility for the deaths of those civilians. I think you're absolutely right to say that, but to say that is not necessarily to deny that the enemy who caused death of those civilians were not also, to some degree, responsible, right? So responsibility is not like a kind of loaf of bread that gets divided out so that one side has 40%, the other has 60%. It's possible that one side could be entirely responsible, but substantial responsibility could also lie for the attacking agents who act foreseeing but not intending the death of those civilians. So I just wonder if that would help with Jeff's case.
No, I think I said that. The responsibility shifts to the people using these people as cover, but that doesn't mean that the other side is without responsibility. They are still responsible for attacking carefully and perhaps taking risks to minimize civilian deaths. And they still have to make some kind of proportionality calculation. I'm just saying I'm not sure whether those civilians count in the same way in proportionality calculation. That's something I'm genuinely not sure about. Now, civilians are not just being used as human shields. When insurgents fight from civilian cover, they're not just trying to protect themselves. They are deliberately exposing the civilians. They want, because they believe that they will benefit from the deaths of those civilians, and they're probably right. So that's another reason for thinking that the attacking side has got to act with great care in those situations for strategic as well as moral reasons. Yes?
Michael, this asks you to think about the implications of your argument for support, let's say over the long run, for efforts in a situation where the good guys are engaged with those that need, for a variety of reasons, to be defeated. And so let me put it this way. The kind of argument you're calling for, which is that there are very good reasons why we train our soldiers the way they do and why we try to protect innocents in war and so forth. And that requires us to focus in certain kinds of ways and engage in certain activities that are likely, among other things, to prolong a war situation. That is, there's no quick sort of way you can get it over with by just killing out a lot of people. And if you add to that the complaints that you articulate from soldiers that there's no good way they can win it, this, of course, will fuel public dissatisfaction with the way a war effort is going. And over time, the public will grow weary and say, let's just, we can't win it, so let's just end it. How do you think the argument could best be made in a context of political discussion and debate, but there are very good reasons for why we should persist with these restrictions, knowing how frustrating it can be for the war fighters as well as for civilians? How do you think that most effectively can be put to those who are tired of the whole thing?
Yeah. Amitai Etzioni had a piece in the New Republic arguing against the McChrystal Petraeus rules, saying we shouldn't get into wars like these, and it's precisely because of the kinds of moral dilemmas that they pose that we shouldn't. But if we do get into them, if we have good reason to get into them, then we should just fight fiercely and win. Damn morality. This is the war is hell argument, and it's best to get it over with as quickly as possible, and anything you do that gets it over with is well, the claim is it is morally justified because fewer people will die with a quick, brutal ending than a long, drawn-out war. I have talked to some soldiers about this, both in this country, soldiers who've been in Afghanistan and soldiers in Israel who fought in Gaza, and they don't accept that. They say you can fight and win in accordance with these rules. That's the argument that has, if you get the rules right, and if your soldiers are trained and disciplined, you can win in good time within these rules. And if you can't, it may be the case that you can't win anyway. So I think it's very important to fight the political moral battles out as well as the military battles in this case. Yeah, now behind you. Yeah.
Thank you. Really enjoyed your comments, Professor. Two issues with regard to constraints. I'm looking at your comments with regard to, we kind of talked about it a little bit. The first one is I did some work with regard to the torture issue about 5 years ago with some other officers. John McCain actually came up with the thought, at the end of the day, his argument was, it's not about them, it's about us, which is a utilitarian kind of argument for why you maintain the rules, the constraints, because you maintain the moral, not superiority, the high ground regarding your own soldiers. That makes sense to me. I like comments with regard to that. The second one seems to me, you kind of brought this up as well, is the moral argument with regard to ending the war quickly. It's not just our guys who don't get killed quickly, but you stop the violence on all sides. And the problem, the side piece of that is, I think there's a real question with regard to what does it mean to win a war. And you need to define that before you can have these other discussions. Otherwise, it gets to be a very long conversation about often nothing.
Right. It has become increasingly difficult to define victory, and I suggested some negative criteria, but it's radically unclear if you achieve those criteria. If you weaken the insurgent forces, and if you cut drastically the terrorist attacks, and if you create a not indecent government, can you then leave? It may be that even after you've done all those things, there's still a need for some military presence, or else it'll all go bad again. People criticize military engagement by saying you don't have an exit strategy. in fact, we don't know what an exit strategy would look like in these kinds of wars, and that's a subject for another conference. On the torture question, I think we need an absolute ban on torture, and we need to understand that in the local equivalent of a supreme emergency, we will do it. That's the ticking bomb case. I wrote about this a long time ago in an essay on dirty hands. I don't know of anyone who can actually look at the ticking bomb case. Now, it may not be it may never happen, but I'm told by people in military intelligence that it does happen. Here you have a source that has provided you with good information in the past, and who tells you that a bomb has been placed in an elementary school in this city. And you have captured somebody who you have good reason to think knows the location of the bomb. And you are the representative of the parents of the children in the school. That's who you are. You are a political figure whose first responsibility is to those people. So in that case, I think you break the rule. You don't change the rule, but you break it. Yes?
This may be a terminological question, but I've long wondered about the relationship between what you call your addition to the proportionality condition, which is that soldiers have to attend to minimize civilian casualties, and what many people discuss as a separate condition of necessity in the use of violence. So proportionality forbids an act if the harm it would cause to civilians is out of proportion to the importance of the objective. And the necessity is supposed to be a separate condition that says even if an act passes proportionality, it's forbidden if there's some other way of achieving the same objective that would be less harmful. But that's a traditional condition. It's not formulated in terms of intention, but it seems to have very much the same result as what you propose as an addition to proportionality. So I've often wondered what you thought the relationship.
Well, the difference is that my argument raised the issue, and I've been wrestling with it and worrying about it and arguing with other people about it ever since, raised the issue of risk. What risks do we require our soldiers to take in intending? And the necessity question doesn't, at least immediately, raise that question, because on some military accounts, an alternative tactic which increases the risk to soldiers isn't part of it's out of the realm of the necessity argument. It just doesn't come up. And I want to say it has to come up, and I'm not, I don't know how to, I can't make any, I can't say the risk that soldiers have to take in this instance is 9, and over here it's 17, and over there it's 3. These are judgment calls, and they have to be made by field officers. And I've talked to quite a lot of field officers, many of whom insist that they make those calculations, and they do ask their soldiers to take risks. That this is, and they also say, all of them, there are other units in Afghanistan or in the Israeli army that don't do this. And I think there is evidence that in Afghanistan and in Gaza, different army units fought not so much according to different rules, but according to different understandings of the rules, and that is a function of the officer, the lieutenant who is leading the unit.
Professor Walzer, as we did this morning with Professor Elstade, we wanted to present you also at the Stockdale Center with one of our oral conferences, not because we think either of you needed it, but to symbolize our gratitude to you both for helping us calibrate our thinking.
Thank you very much.